Hi everyone, this is Mani and welcome back to SKSecOps channel. So today we will be understanding the difference between CMD and entry point. Coming to CMD specifies the default command that runs when a container starts, but it can be overridden when you run the container. On the other hand, entry point defines the main command that always run, but it can't be overridden when running a container. Let us understand these two differences visually by seeing at the bottom left there is a Dockerfile which contains some set of instructions, and let us dive into these instructions. From Ubuntu sets the base image where entry point echo is the main executable that always runs, whereas CMD hello world can be overridden and it acts as a default argument to the entry point. Let us build the Docker file to get the image. The image is like a blueprint and where we are creating instance or running container from it. Now let's run the Docker image. When you run the container docker run my app from that image, the output is hello world. This is the because CMD instruction provides the default argument to the entry point, which in this case is the fixed command echo. The entry point defines the main executable that can't be overridden at runtime. That means can't be changed, which is fixed. Whereas CMD can be overridden by passing arguments during container execution. For example, running docker run my app hi overrides the default CMD value and produces the output as hi. So for CMD we can provide using CMD we can provide default arguments for the entry point, or it acts like a default command to run where entry point is like a fixed entry gate for the container's execution. Let us understand some of the scenarios when to use CMD and entry point and even their combination. Let us understand the scenario 1 where we are using only CMD and there is no entry point. So you can see there is a Docker file here where we are setting up two instructions from Ubuntu and CMD with certain arguments. So once the Docker file is ready, we build the image and then we will be running the container without passing anything. Then the output is hello from CMD. That's because CMD provides the default command when nothing else is specified. Now we override it by passing a new command at runtime. So here what we are passing is we are passing the two arguments for CMD. One is echo and other one is hello override. Now the output is hello override. This shows that CMD can be completely replaced when running the container. So when to use this scenario? When you want to provide a default command that the user can completely override at a runtime. Let us understand the scenario 2 where entry point as a fixed command. You can see there is a Docker file which contains two instructions. One is from Ubuntu followed by entry point with echo comma fixed entry as arguments. Now let us build the image. Once you build the image, then run the container. The output when you run the container is the fixed entry. That's because entry point defines the fixed command that always runs. Now we run it again, but this time we are passing extra argument. the output is fixed entry extra. This shows that entry point stays fixed and anything you pass is added as an argument. So use case is when your container should always run with the same command but accepts input parameters, then definitely you can use this scenario. Now let's discuss scenario 3 where entry point and CMD are used together. You can see this Docker file contains 3 instructions where it contains entry point with main executable command echo and CMD with one of the argument as hello from CMD. So once the Docker file is ready, now it's time to build the image from the Docker file. Once the image is ready, now let's run the container without passing any arguments. Now the output is hello from CMD. What we have argument within the CMD. That's because entry point is fixed and CMD provides default arguments. Now we run it again, but this time we pass a new argument which is overridden. Then output is overridden. This shows that entry point stays constant but CMD can be overridden at runtime. So when to use this scenario is when you want a base command should remain constant like echo, but the default arguments can be overridden by the user. So in this case you can use the combination of entry point as well as CMD. Let's wrap it up with scenario 4 where we are running a custom shell script with the combination of entry point and CMD. You can see there is a Docker file which with some set of instruction, but the main focus area is at shell script. So the entry point is having one of the executable which is the script.sh, and then the CMD is having one of the default argument. This CMD is providing parameters to that shell script. So this is the overall intention of this Docker file. So once the Docker file is ready, now it's time to build the image from this Docker file by running this command. So once we run this command, then next we are running the container without having any arguments. Then the output is the default argument which is from the CMD. Next, we are running another instance of application by passing the custom argument. So when we pass any custom argument, the output will be custom argument. So here this script still runs, but the arguments comes from what you pass while running. So when to use this case is when you have a script for complex logic and keep it flexible for runtime inputs. Then we can proceed with the scenario 4.